Hi, this is David from the Modern Martial Artist, and today we're going to talk about final thoughts on McGregor versus Mayweather, and then we're going to go over Jon Jones and how he massively fucked up. So, to start out, I think there's a good chance that McGregor can make him stand and trade for a couple rounds. I think Floyd will figure him out, and if McGregor doesn't hit him with something really hard and solid that staggers him, makes his reflexes kind of go a little bit, weakens him as a fighter. If he doesn't do that, then Floyd will figure him out. And at that point, if McGregor is not insanely clever, insanely smart, because he's going into a place where he's never been before. He's been in the octagon, he's never been in a boxing ring. So it's just he need to be on such a higher level of intelligence than Floyd. And Floyd, for all the jokes about how he can't read and yada yada yada, well, he could count. He could count money. We know he's really good at that, you know. So in that regard, just look at it like who you gonna root for, like a physicist or a mathematician who understands numbers, or someone with a degree in English or a literary degree. And that's just me being facetious, but obviously he can read and he can box very, very well. I don't think that's in question. I mentioned in my last video that I do think the fight will be in a knockout. I didn't say who I thought was going to win, though. I wanted to keep it kind of even, and I'm letting myself get hyped. And like I said in my first couple of videos, I do think McGregor has a chance, but I really don't think it's much of a chance. It's there. It's enough to be exciting. It's definitely enough to be exciting. It's an exciting fight. I'm letting myself get hyped. I'm letting myself get excited because I could see ways for McGregor to win. I could see ways that he knocks out Mayweather and shakes up the world, and I don't know, maybe he says, "I'm not surprised, motherfucker," or says, "I shook up the world. I am the greatest," or comes up with his own shit to say, which he most likely will. But on the other hand, it's just so much more likely that Mayweather's going to take it, especially if it goes past the first half of the fight. Like I said, unless McGregor's very, very, very clever that he could come from playing checkers so long and then go into a chess match. Not to say that one is harder than the other or one's more intricate than the other, but just go from one type of strategy game to another type of strategy game, and then after just, a few months practice, be able to win at that game. Even though they're similar, they have things that are in common. They're both on the board. They both have limited ranges of movement. You still have that period of adjustment. He'd need to be insanely clever to readjust once Floyd figures him out. But he might be. We'll see. And like I said, if he rocks Mayweather in the first couple rounds, then he's dealing with an old boxer whose reflexes aren't where they're supposed to be. And then we might see a battle. But if that's not how it happens, then the last 5 to 4 rounds are Floyd deciding if he wants to knock out McGregor. And Floyd doesn't take risks. There are a couple things that make me think that it could still happen, though. One is that it's his last fight. Hands down, this is his last fight. This is how he's choosing to end his career. And in his own, he's never shown himself to be egotistical. He's taken shots to the groin and then come in and still, he hasn't gotten heated. He still just picked the guy apart from a distance and then clinched, and, so it doesn't really take him off. It's hard to take him off. But we're looking at the last fight of his career, and he knows people always call him a runner. He doesn't seem to care. But I think it's something that for his last fight might spur him on. And then, of course, maybe at that point, McGregor's so gone that Floyd doesn't think he has any power left. And that's when he can go in for the knockout. Which would be painful to see, but, McGregor doesn't really have anything to lose. He has his pride, but like I said, it's a different sport. If he goes 12 rounds or makes it even 9 or 10, then he could still brag about that because he was going against the greatest of all time. We're not talking top 50 here. We're talking the greatest of our generation in the sport. You could say all you want about his techniques or his methods or whatever, but in that sport with a specific set of rules, he was the best of a generation. So McGregor won't have anything. On the other hand, if Floyd loses and gets knocked out, oh man, he will never hear the end of that for the rest of his life. every single time. He can't walk down the street. He can't go into a bar. If Floyd loses this, he can't go into a bar ever. It'll just be a bunch of, armchair guys going like, so I guess you weren't really that good after all, were you, So, yeah, huge risk for him, but I think it's a risk anyone would take for $100 million, So I did want to talk about some ways that the fight could go. I've talked about before that I think Floyd is very good at using grappling for just a split second. I mean, obviously he clinches and ties up and everything, but as far as setting up his shots off of like raising the opponent's chin off his elbow, off of slight readjustments like that, he's good at getting away with it very quickly to where the ref can't correct him before the shot's been thrown. I think it's not going to work too well against McGregor. I think if Mayweather's going to win, it's going to be by distance and by angles and by his pivots. And so in the first few rounds, first half of the fight, I think McGregor can slow him down, not fall for his normal tricks, and then hit him as he leaves. Because that's what Floyd does, is he uses the grappling tricks and then he hits you and then he leaves. But if it's not working on Conor, then I think he has a chance to land some blows that Floyd's not expecting at first. He will quickly come to expect them and stop using those things because they will leave him vulnerable. And once again, this is just my prediction. It could happen any single way. They could walk out and one guy could just knock the other guy out in 10 seconds. Or it could be the most boring fight of all time. But that's what I think McGregor's going to try to do. More so than work like angles that Floyd's already seen before or any of that stuff. While he's leaving, though, because McGregor can turn on a dime and still have power. And that's hard. Man, he throws his left hand like a lot of Taekwondo guys can throw a rear leg round kick. Just pivot and turn on a dime, and then he can still sink in. Even if his foot's in the air, he could still sink down, and then just kind of leverage his weight, and then hit you at the very end of a range that shouldn't even be possible. And he does it. So, that's his best shot. Like I said, it's unlikely, but it could happen enough to where I'm letting myself get hyped and I'm really excited about the fight. Now Mayweather, though, he has a lot of options, specifically to go to the body. Mayweather's body jab is absolutely incredible. The way that he makes it look like he's going for your head, and then he just slides in and then just hits you in the diaphragm and then slides it down your ribs or your stomach. And it just wears his opponents out so insanely bad. And everyone's always saying like, oh yeah, they didn't, use their energy correctly. It's like, no. He tired them out through the fight through a number of different techniques. These guys are champions. They know how much energy they have in the tank during a fight. And he's, of course, really great at using as little energy as possible too. And my concern for McGregor is that he likes to gauge distance by reaching forward with his rear hand, and that's going to square him up. I think every time he does it, or maybe if he still loads up on his punch, because he likes to shift his weight to his back foot before putting it to his front, just manipulate your center of mass so that you move forward a little bit and get your full body weight going into the punch. He likes to do that, and Floyd will see that coming from a mile away, and that would be the perfect time to hit him with a body shot. And that's what will really tire McGregor out throughout the fight, is if he ends up in the later round and he has no cardio, I don't think that's because he didn't train cardio well. I think that's because Floyd, every time he comes in with his left, Floyd will be pounding him to the body with even maybe with a lead right, with his right hand, and that could be a knockout in itself. If McGregor loads up his left, Chad Mendes was great at cutting him off with his lead right hand when he saw McGregor load up the weight on his back foot. But if Floyd did that to the body, that could actually be a knockout right there. And McGregor, or knocked down at the most, but it will take its toll on McGregor. But like I said, and not to repeat myself, but like I said, if McGregor could catch him, not knock him out, but if he could catch him in the first half of the fight to where he is dazed, and they're both great distance fighters, and they can both pivot, move around the ring well, then we could have, if not a knockout, an actual battle. We could have one of the best fights of all time. So I'm not shitting on it. I think that Floyd's going to win. I think McGregor has a better chance than people are giving him. But man, either way, I think there's a lot of potential for it to be a very good fight. Is there anything else I wanted to talk about that? Oh, I think as McGregor gets tired, he's going to go back to his instincts, what he's done his whole life, and he's going to stop tucking his chin, if that's an adjustment he's made. Probably stop raising his shoulders. And I think that will be insanely dangerous for him. If he does that, then yeah, Floyd, easy work. All right, last thing I want to talk about is Jon Jones. Fuck, man. That is sad, because he didn't need the steroids. He felt like he needed the steroids. And now he's trying to defend it. I said last time, he needed to prove himself to the fans as a person. We know he's good. We know he's the greatest of all time, or at least we did. He proved himself as a fighter repeatedly, but I said that it would take time, and that time would tell. And man, time told. So that's just a shame. He had superior height, reach, and he won the fight through outsmarting him, is the really sad thing. He didn't win the fight because he was stronger or because he was faster or any of that. If you check out my fight breakdown, you could see that he was initially, if not losing, he was not doing well. And because Cormier found a number of ways to readjust that I go into there. And then he was able to readjust. He did what Conor will need to do if the fight goes long. He found a way to readjust and used an entirely different method, similar to what Willie Pep used to do, and found a way to win. And now what does it mean? What does what I just said mean? Nothing, because he was on steroids. And that's the end of the issue. It's that he had an unfair advantage. As smart as he was, as superior as his strategy and technique were, he was still on steroids. And Cormier definitely wasn't. So it's tainted. He ruined his life, and he's been doing that consistently. Maybe he'll go into another sport. Maybe he'll just keep the money he's had. It's not like he needs more. Maybe he'll go into someplace else in MMA besides UFC. But I'm tired of watching him now. I'm not going to watch him anymore. I think if he'd responded differently, if he'd been like, yeah, you caught me, maybe, probably not. The most interesting question is what happens with Cormier now. How's he going to handle it? He's handled it with class, but does he come back from what was obviously a concussion from someone who had superior strength because of the steroids? Does he come back from that as the same fighter? And I hope so. He's not at times the most entertaining fighter, but he's a good fighter. One of the best. I'd like to see him move up to heavyweight, actually. And I think we could have some really entertaining fights there. So, yeah, that's it for this podcast. It's kind of a short one. I just want to get some final thoughts out there and go a little bit deeper into what I thought could happen with the fight. That wraps it up for now. Hope you guys are having an awesome day, and happy training.